Oh, wow. Such a joy in the house. Am I able to keep you, Tat? She's like, please don't let me stay up here the whole thing. Do you want to sit down? You're so good. Everything I say is going to sound more spiritual and churchy if you play that. They teach you that in Bible college. If you want to be a really good preacher, keep the keys up when you're preaching. Marry a pianist. A what? If you want to be a preacher, marry a pianist. I'd rather say a keys player, just so there's no confusion. The question that I've been getting over the last 3 or 4 days is to actually still seem to have this peace. You still seem to have this laughter and this joy, despite everything that's going on, with your dad, your father-in-law, and, he is very much my spiritual dad, he's replaced, I guess, or become that dad to me as well. And when your mentor and your hero and one of your best friends is in the predicament that you are, it's devastating and it is hard and it is tough and there are tears and there are battles and there are things that you've got to face. But what I love is that I can lift my hands and I can cry out for hope, and I can remind myself and remind this world and remind our enemy that Jesus sits above it all. And that's why we can continue to smile and enjoy being in the house and enjoying life. Amen. So be encouraged. I can't preach it any better than Pastor Lynn just did, but everyone's been asking left, right, and center, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. All I know is that Jesus has got me and Jesus has got us, and that seems to, you can argue and debate theological nuances behind that all you like, but really at the end of the day, some things just cannot be explained, and the presence and the peace of God is very much like that. Amen. Awesome. Well, this morning, we're going to be getting into part 3. Everyone say part 3 of our frequently asked questions series. It's kicked off. It's gained a lot of momentum. There's a lot of questions. We've got people joining us from home, so turn around and say hello. Welcome our audience around the world via the camera there. Thank you so much to Wayne for doing that. Amy's also filming this to show Pastor Barry. Come on, give Pastor Barry a huge hello on the. There we go. We love you. Praying for you. It's great. Awesome. So our 3 questions this morning, and if it's your first time here, we just want to welcome you. You are welcome. My friend Rach came all the way from Cardiff, the Diff in Newcastle, to be here this morning. I've been trying to get her to church for 3 years. Can you believe that? And she's here this morning. So it's great to have you at Hope Central, Rach. It's awesome to see you. It's awesome. 3 questions that we're going to be tackling. I'm going to do my best to try and shed some hope and some truth and some light biblically around some 3 key questions that many of you have heard in your workplaces, in your schools, in your unis, in life in general. Question number 1, everyone say number 1. How do you know that Christianity is the true religion? How do you know? Of all the religions and faiths and beliefs out there on the table, how do you know that this Jesus that you call God is really God? How do you know that Christianity is right out of all the other religions out there? I mean, Buddhism sounds pretty good, man. Buddhism just gets along with everybody and, just coexist. And as long as you do good and love people, we're going to live 1,000,000 lifetimes and eventually get it right and reach nirvana and all these sort of things. And then you've got Islam, and Islam, has its own message of its own. And then you've got the Hindus, and the Hindus have millions of different gods, which in my eyes, I kind of go, really, are they God? If none of them really rules over the other, is it really a God, or is it just a bunch of idols, So we've got all these things on the smorgasbord of faiths out there. But before we get to this question, I've got a question of my own. Why is this question being asked? It's all good that we get questions, but I look behind the surface of a question. I deal with questions all day long. As a general manager of a gym, people will come in and go, how much is it for the gym? And I'm like, well, first let me ask you, why are you interested? Because what I begin to get to then is I begin to get to why, what are you looking to achieve and why? Because when there's a why, there's going to be a way, and there's going to be a commitment to a way. So we're going to look at a lot of the whys this morning. So why is the question being asked, how do you know that Christianity is the true religion? I'm going to tell you why most people actually ask that question, because they're actually in search for truth. We live in a world which tells you there's 1,000,000 different ways that you can find truth, but yet there's so many people feeling like they've been ripped off in their quest for truth. Am I right? Have you ever felt ripped off? You got made to believe in something that you found out was a lie? So we're going to look at some of the things around that today. See, we have a few different approaches to, well, how do you know that Christianity is the right religion, or Islam, or Buddhism, or whatever your your system may be, there's a few ways that we see people approaching this. Some people will say to me, well, Dax, that's good if it works for you, because we live in a world right now that you can believe in whatever you want as long as you don't try and push that on anybody else. And in fact, if you say that what you believe in is absolute truth, aka it's the truth and everything else is a lie, then you're actually intolerant, you're arrogant, you're a religious nutbag. And yes, we do get some of those in churches from time to time as well. Some Christians are like concrete, thoroughly mixed up and too set in their ways. And my next joke, no. But people will say, well, my belief works for me. Ever heard that? It works for me. Well, that's great, Dax, you go to church and you're a Christian. It's great that that works for you, and that's fine, it works for you. Who are you to say that my faith is wrong, my belief system is wrong? You ever heard that? The thing is with the works for me approach, this works for me, it's not, I guess the one question that is more important than does it work for you is it true? Because really, your faith will hang on something and it's only as strong as whatever it's fastened to. See, I can really hope that eating Oreos and Krispy Kremes and not training and not exercising, I can hope and strongly believe that that'll give me a shredded six-pack, big arms, and great health and fitness. And I can strongly believe in that. But would you say that is a true statement? Or would you go, yeah, Dax, you're going to be really disappointed? Many of you are looking at me like I'm already disappointed. I bought that 7-minute ab workout from Danos Direct, and damn it didn't work. No matter how strongly you believed in Danos Direct, you felt ripped off. So our faith, whatever it may be, and let me tell you something, you have faith in something, even if you don't call yourself religious, you might even have the faith in the fact that there is nothing out there. Your faith is only as strong as what it's ever going to be fastened to. So what we're going to look at this morning is, what is the Christian faith fastened to? Is that all right? There's various religions and they contradict each other. Some of them out there are going, well, all the religions, it's like a hubcap, and all these different religions are like the spokes and they all get to the same God. Really? How come they all contradict each other on how to get there? How come they all say that the other one is a lie? If truth for you is truth for you and truth for me is truth for me, what if my truth says yours is a lie? Is it still truth? Come on, man. You know that song, don't you, Jordan? Yeah, you do. Even if you don't admit it, you do. So you can't all be right. We can't all be right. Then you've got the relative truth approach, which is, how tall is Pastor Lynn? Some of you would say she's 5'8". Some would say she's 174 centimeters. Others would go, well, hang on a minute, she's got a beanie on, so that would maybe make it more of 178. Well, hey, then she's got these real killer boots on as well, so maybe she's actually closer to sort of 5'10". So really, I mean, my version of truth is slightly different to your version of truth, and then we begin to water down the truth side of things again. The only way to really find out is, okay, let's remove the beanie, let's remove the boots, let's stand you against the wall, and we are going to measure you from top to bottom, and that will be the truth about your height. We going okay? You're looking at me like a bunch of stunned mullets this morning. It doesn't matter how strongly you believe or perceive someone, how tall they are. What matters is, what does the ruler say? That is the truth. But we live in a society, right, where we go looking for things to bend around our own perception. So we look for truths that will fit our perception of something. Whereas the way truth actually works is it's uncompromising. The truth is the truth is the truth. And you will either bend yourself around the truth and go, well, hey, the truth is the foundation, so everything will be based off that. Or we will go, yeah, I'm not keen to bend myself around something else. I would rather just have something fit in with my personal preference. So if we look at the different major religions of the world, right, you got Buddhists, and they're actually agnostic to God. They're like, yeah, whatever. Is there a God? Isn't there? It doesn't really matter. We do our karmaic lifestyle. Then you've got the Islam, where Jesus is not God, just plain and simple. Then you've got Christianity, which pretty much centers on Jesus and his divinity. So it's not about what works, it's about what is actually true. And we're going to have a look at that. The smorgasbord religion, I know people that call themselves Zen Christians, where they take a little bit of Buddhism, but they believe that Jesus was maybe the Son of God, but we're not sure if we're really going to go there. Then we got some people that will take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I like, oh, that sounds pretty good too, so I'll add that, and we get this smorgasbord of faith going on. And usually what you find is people will create a picture of God which usually looks most like them. Christianity, we actually look at God and go, God, we're actually created to be more like you. Not like the children of Israel where they created their own God. They would shape and mold their own God. Many Christians are like that today. Oh, God understands. He knows my heart. He's cool. Me and him are friends. He's a gracious God. Absolutely. All of those things are true. But does he compromise truth in order to make provisions for your flesh and for your lifestyle? Good preaching. Amen. So neither of these approaches really bring us to a place of truth. What we're going to look at is evidence. Everyone say evidence. Let's look at the evidence. We're going to sift through some evidence. So you've got Hindus where you've got millions of gods. You either accept or reject the fact that there are millions of gods and you resign your life to that. Millions of gods. Accept it or reject it. But there is no evidence. Islam. What if Muhammad was lying? You either accept or reject that, but there is no evidence. The question, well, what evidence for Christianity then? So glad you asked. So glad you asked. Jesus alone was the only leader amongst any of the major world systems of faith. He was the only leader who claimed to be God in the flesh. He backed that up with miracles, water into wine, healings, walking on water. That's awesome. When you can moonwalk on the ocean, that's a party trick right there. The guy could never say YOLO. He raised from the grave like, ha, just kidding. Oh man, these jokes are getting worse. All right, I'm not even a dad yet. But if this is true, he claimed he was God. If it's true that he saw signs, miracles, and wonders as a result of his divinity, that he rose from the grave as a result of his divinity, then we can stop our quest for God. We can stop our quest for truth right there. But the question remains then, well, how do you know that that stuff is true about Jesus? Where do you get your information from? We get it from the Bible. The Bible, you know, that's been chopped and changed a million times down the centuries. And how do you know what you've got in your hot little hand right there is actually the truth to what was written so many times? And I'm so glad you asked that question too, because we're going to look at it. See, the Bible, the New Testament accuracy that we get the accounts of Jesus from and all that he did, his death and his resurrection, was actually started as a historical account of Jesus. If you go to Luke chapter 1, verse 1 to 4, Luke chapter 1, verse 1 to 4. If you don't know where Luke is, ain't no shame in the table of contents. You end up in like Ruth going, yeah, I found it, Dax, I'm right here. You can laugh in church, it's all right. What did I say? Luke. Luke was a doctor. Doctors need to be, they need to be accurate, usually about what they do. Otherwise it can land them and other people in trouble, right? So this is a guy who was of reputable credibility. And Luke chapter 1, verse 1, it'll be up on the screen too. I think the guys will get it up there shortly. It says, many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses. Everyone say eyewitnesses. Eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, he's a guy that he's referring to, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. Eyewitnesses, accurate accounts that have been investigated, so that you've actually got something to stand on in regards to these claims about who Jesus is. You might be thinking, well, why should we believe that? It's in the Bible again, Dax. How can I trust that? Great question. Let's look at just three. Now, there's hundreds of different things that I could have brought, but for matter of time, I'm only going to look at the three key ones that this is mainly all arguments stop about New Testament accuracy. Number one is archaeological evidence. Archaeological evidence. See, whenever the New Testament has been put to the test, or it's been questioned archaeologically in terms of the demographics of where the Bible said things happened, and where there's either been archaeological digs or evidence found, or even the current geographic structure of things today, it always checks out. Now, you're talking about a time where it's not easy to jump on a plane or a boat and just get somewhere that's maybe 3,000 miles away. That would take an absolute lifetime to get somewhere like that back in the days that these scriptures were written. So archaeological evidence, it's been confirmed over and over and over. Even coincidental details, the baths of Bethesda. Did I say that right? Him too. Yep, that's right. Legend isn't actually like that. Chinese whispers, you'll see that there are changes to key details. Number two, everyone say number two. Jewish oral tradition. Back in the times of this, whenever a historical document pertaining to faith, religion in the Jewish culture, the meticulous way in which historical documents were reproduced to be passed around, it had to be a handwritten photocopy of the original. So you take a photocopy, you take whatever your document is, you put it on the scanner, and it prints out an exact copy. This is the way it was meticulously checked by scribes and people carrying it. They would go, okay, if it said across the top, this is the account of Jesus Christ, but when you made your own copy, the next copy of it, you ran out of room and said, this is the account of Jesus. Oh, I'm going to have to put Christ on the next line. They would scrap it and go, no, that is not an accurate handwritten copy of the original. Even if one letter or the placement of the lines was different, they would go, no, we do not account for that to be accurate to the original copy. Do you know that the New Testament, according to that, is the most validated ancient document known to man? They can't teach this in universities. Why? Because they would be saying that, well, according to our own methods of validating accurate ancient documents, we would have to concede that Christianity is the only true faith, and we are not willing to do that. They will teach from Plato. They will teach from Aristotle. They will teach from Josephus. They will teach from all these philosophers that were around this time or even later, but yet they don't have the substantiated evidence that the New Testament carries according to their own methods of validating historical ancient documents. I got into a massive discussion with a history professor at the University of WA many, many years ago. And he pretty much, I pulled out the tables and everything. I said, okay, cool. So this is how you guys validate it. How many copies are found, how far spread they are around the world, and how accurate they are between each copies. I said, according to your method of validating if something is trustworthy as fact, why does the New Testament outweigh everything else you teach in the curriculums, but you are not allowed to teach the New Testament? Even without the spiritual faith stuff, what about just the historical stuff? You still won't count it as historically accurate. But according to the way you decipher this, it outweighs everything else that you're teaching. And after we backpedaled and danced around for about an hour or two, he kind of said, look, Dax, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You know professors do that. I know what you're doing. I said, me too. He said, you're asking us to say that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. I said, I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking you to look at the facts here, man. Anyway, discussion was over. I don't know if the guy ever got saved or became a Christian, but I hope that according to his own methods of holding to something true, would maybe a little bit more clear to him that Jesus maybe was real. Jesus did live, Jesus did die, he did resurrect, and maybe he's a little bit closer to having that salvation in his own life. Amen? So that is Jewish oral tradition. Number three, everyone say number three. the dating of the New Testament materials is very, very relevant as well. Has your grandmother or grandfather ever told you a story or something about their life that you've then passed on to maybe your kids? Yeah? There is not a law, but there's like a way that they will validate core information that is passed on from generation to generation. If anything within 2 generations is passed down, they find that there is a core information foundation there, if you like. When an event happens and it's being retold for up to 2 generations, we get a solid core of information. It's called the grandmother effect. New Testament events and writings are only 6 to 7 years apart. So the same stuff is being said and the story is being passed along only 6 to 7 years apart. Who can remember 6 to 7 years ago? Detailed facts of something that went down in your life. Now, you get the odd person that will come up with some, oh yeah, but the Chinese whispers thing, and how about if I just put a little spin on it? Absolutely. But when the majority is all going, actually, no, that's not correct, that this is what we've heard, and they're all saying the same thing regardless of them knowing each other, that holds up. It has some substance to it. The book of Acts was written in 60 to 62 AD. The book of Luke, a little bit before that, 58 to 60 AD. In that case, we're only talking 4 to 5 years. Matthew and Mark's gospel was a little bit before that. Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection was in 33 AD, according to chronological time measurement. The gospels were all written within 1 generation, aka in your lifetime. Imagine if you saw Jesus live, do miracles, die, and resurrect, and that got told to your kids. That's what we're talking about in terms of the historical accounts of Jesus in the Bible being passed down. It wasn't a fairy tale that got, 100 years. What we have here today is actually very close to what was still written back in 58, 60 AD. So can it be trusted? I'll leave that with you, because this thing that we live is called faith. I wasn't there, but the evidence stacks up. If they can believe in a Plato, if they can believe in an Aristotle and what he was recording and teaching, and this far outweighs it, I think I can go along with that. Cool? Cool. All right. So that was practically question number 1. How do you know that Christianity is the one true faith? I didn't go into a lot of the experiential stuff. I became a Christian because I walked into a church much like this, and it was completely different to anything that I'd experienced. I thought they were a bunch of freaks. I walked in, I'm a little kid with an identity crisis, white, thought he was black, big jeans. Anton, I got Reebok, big Reebok. That was when Reeboks were still good. They were at the top of the sales. Reeboks, I've got my starter cap, my big Chicago Bulls jacket, thinking I'm all bad. And I walk in and I'm expecting church, right? I'm expecting stained glass windows, creepy old dudes in robes, no offense to anyone that wears robes in church. And I was expecting Ned Flanders Christians, head Oakley, geeky, straighty, 180 Christians. I walk in, the place is swinging, much like today. Music is pumping, the place is full of life. I'm looking around and people look like they are in their own little world. And then they start doing something real crazy. Some of them even have their hands raised. Why do you have your hands raised? My cousin leans over and he goes, you might be thinking this is a little different. I'm like, yeah, this is different. This is not church. Non-Christian. Here I am defending what church should be. This is not church. Hands. This is offensive to God. He likes quiet and he likes boring because he's boring. This is my attitude, right? Walk in, place is thumping. Predominantly black church, African church. Kids are break dancing, praise and worship's going off. Youth pastors playing the Congo drums, wearing a tight shirt, big muscles, all that sort of. I'm like, man, this is so blasphemous. It's sinful. He's a stumbling block, and I didn't even know what a stumbling block was. He's a stumbling block to all the ladies in here. Anyway, I walk into church, right? And I see this little boy. He's the worship leader's son. He's broken his leg in a trampoline accident, I find out. He's on crutches, he can't walk. He's in quite a bit of pain, but he's at church with his family. And the pastor gets up and starts talking about how God is the God who heals. And it wasn't just for back then, he still heals today. And they pray for this little boy. They lay hands on him. If you've ever been in church and you wondered what the hands in the air is about, it's not a charismatic thing. It's not a Hillsong thing. It's not a Pentecostal thing. It's a surrender thing. Psalms talks about lifting up holy hands in the sanctuary in worship to God. If you were down a dark alley and you felt a gun get stuck into your back, say, give me your wallet, your hands would go up. It's the international sign of surrender. So when we come into church and you see our hands raised, it's like, God, you are God. And I surrender my life. It's just a sign of how we worship. And it's really not that different to what you've ever seen. You go to a Coldplay concert. Hands up, Coldplay. But let me tell you something. Coldplay is not going to come to your bedside when you're sick and pray for you. Oh, hang on. Oh, you're sick. Wow, you got terminal cancer. Put on some Coldplay. And they were all yellow. That's not going to do you any good, man. If anything, they borrow it from us. It's the church that shows them how to raise their hands. You okay? We're quiet this morning. Wow. That's okay. I don't need you to be loud. I'm going to preach this anyway. Question number 2. Everyone say number 2. How much time have I got? How long have I been going for? Too long. 20 minutes? Okay. I got 10 minutes to get through this. All right. Number 2. Is attending church regularly really that important? Wow. I don't even need to preach that point. We got a good response from that. Yes. But why? I asked the question, why are you even asking that question? If you're asking the question, why is it even important to get there each Sunday? That tells me straight away that you don't actually see value in church to prioritize every Sunday. I ain't coming back to this church, man. He just pulled my punk card. Yeah, that's what we do. People will only prioritize and make time for something that they find valuable. This week, we're down visiting Pastor Barry. And you know me, if I don't eat every 2 or 3 hours, I lose my salvation. Like, I just become another person. I will get ugly with people. I will just slap the hell out of you, man. Like, I need some food, so just get out of my face. Anyway, it was time to eat again. Meal number 4 for me that day. And Mom, Pastor Lynn, myself, my brother, his partner, we're going to go get some food. Amy goes, no, I'm not leaving, Dad. I'm just going to stay here. Can you bring me something back? And I was like, geez, guilt trip or what, man? I'm hungry. Anyway, all I know that is that she values her dad and the time that she's having with him right now so much that the priority was staying by his side, not getting some food. It's the same thing with church life. If you don't see it adding value and improving the quality of your life spiritually, physically, emotionally, you're not going to prioritize it. If anything, I would have to ask the question, have you really experienced the fullness of what church is? Church has got nothing to do with this building right now. Church has got everything to do with having community, having relationship, having a support network, having people around you that are like-minded, that can spur you on, that can encourage you, that can get around you and let you know that you're not doing life alone. Come hell or high water, yes, it sucks sometimes. Someone will hold your hand through the storm. I don't know about you, but for me, that's a big part of what my church life is all about. When I first became a Christian, and remember, I came from an anti-Christian family almost, where they're like, church just wants your money, they're just about brainwashing you. And I'm like, man, if you knew half the stuff that was going through my brain, you would agree it needs a darn good washing. Anyway, so the question I have to ask is, I'm not going to take the religious standpoint, well, you've got to go to church because the Bible says so. That means nothing to people nowadays. The reason I go to church is because I want to be here. Religion is something that you have to do. Relationship and church life and Christianity and walking with Jesus is something that I want to do. It's something that I get to do. And I think it's the same for a lot of the people in this room. So I did a thing on Facebook last night. I'm like, guys, I would love your input and your feedback on why you maybe haven't made church a priority for yourself. Maybe you're a non-Christian and you've never wanted to go. I'd love to know why. Maybe you are a Christian and you don't want to lock into a church. You don't want to get committed to going to church and becoming a part of the body of believers. I want to know why. And I'm no judgment. Just any of your comments would be greatly appreciated. A lot of the stuff that came out is, I feel like I don't belong. And straight away, I'm like, God, there is a massive injustice right there. If people ever walk through the doors of this church and don't feel welcome, I will go outside and set myself on fire. I will go down the street and start another church, because that is not the church that Jesus came and died for. That is not the culture of the kingdom. Jesus was hanging with the prostitutes. Jesus was hanging with the guys in the mafia. Jesus was hanging with the tax collectors. Jesus was hanging with the dudes that were outcasts of society. So as far as I'm concerned, the only message on the wall of Jesus' church is come as you are, not how you should be. And the only person who shouldn't fit in a church is a perfect person. What I'm telling you this morning is that you belong here. And it's not just about you. It's about those around you because they need you. Church, yes, it is like a hospital. People come in, they're hurting, they're scarred up, life has beaten them to a pulp, and we've all felt that, and we're all going through that even right now. Believe me, right now. And church is like a hospital. You get taken care of. You get some care. But then on the other side of the other wing of that building or that house, there's like a boot camp where you begin to get trained up, you begin to get developed, you begin to go through the training, and you begin to get taught, and you get to get schooled on how to live this Christian life. You know that the church is the only place on earth that will challenge your heart. Tony Robbins, Mr. Business Entrepreneur, he's great, he's fantastic. He'll challenge your mind and the way you look at things. People will challenge your lifestyle, your health, your fitness, your diet. That's a personal trainer. Rach was telling me about her personal trainer this week, calling her all sorts of four-letter words before the service. I can't believe you. No, I'm joking, I'm lying now. But you will have other areas of your lifestyle challenged by various people, but church is the only place your heart will get challenged. Bitterness, really? What if Jesus was bitter towards you for all the stuff you've done? But he's not. So what right have I got to be bitter towards somebody? That's a heart challenge. Can't forgive that person? Really? What about the stuff that Jesus forgave you of? Who are you to hold a grudge? Because you ain't no better than anybody else in here. Really? They give money at church? Come on, are you serious? Really? How much money did you put down on the alcohol last night? How much money are you giving to the dope dealer on the corner of your block? How much money are you sinking into strip clubs and really? I don't go to church, there's too many hypocrites. Really? We got room for one more. We all in the same boat together, baby. Come on, can we just be real this morning? Is attending church regularly really that important? I believe so. I would not be here today if a church hadn't welcomed me in. And if you've ever felt rejected, ostracized, or not a part of the in crowd and the in clique, I apologize. That is not the church that Jesus was wanting to build. All I know is that as long as churches have people, churches will have problems, and we're getting through it together. But please don't let it be a reason to stay away. Church takes very many forms. For you, your church might be sports on a Sunday, or it might be your wife on a Sunday, it might be family on a Sunday. Let me tell you something. You will attend church. It just may look very different to the house of God, but you will worship somewhere. Ouch. Ouch. It's real though, yeah? I'm going to take you through some scripture so I don't get called a heretic preacher again. Acts chapter 2, verse 42. It says, the early church devoted themselves to teaching of the apostles, the fellowship, communion, and prayer. They committed themselves to it in the temple as well as in house churches that were having church in their homes. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 to 25. It says, do not neglect the gathering of the saints, but spur one another on, encourage one another. What you heard Pastor Lynn doing this morning, she was spurring us on. She was encouraging us to keep going, to continue to walk this walk of faith and hope, and continue to speak life even when there's darkness, and continue to speak like healing even when there is sickness. That's what church is about, spurring you on. Galatians 5, verse 13. It's where we learn how to instruct one another. Ooh, we don't like anyone instructing us anywhere. Who are you to tell me anything? That's why church is so good. You got to be told sometimes. You ever met someone who can't be told? They can't teach. They can't grow. They're not going anywhere. Business people, ever had someone on your staff that you just can't critique, you can't train, you can't develop them? Give them 3 to 6 months, they'll be out the door. They'll either quit because they can't stand it, or you'll fire them because you can't stand them. 1 Corinthians 12 refers to the church being a body, and a body has many parts. Here's the thing about a body. I've got friends that are in wheelchairs. All of their body parts are present, but not all of their body parts are working. And I think, wow, how much does the church look like that today? We're all present. I'm there on Sunday. Dax, what do you expect from me? Well, it's great that you're present. Kudos for you, bro. Are you working? Or are you the body parts that are in the wheelchair? 1 Corinthians 12 talks about us being a body and every part working. This is where you begin to walk out what God's doing in your life. You get to begin to be a blessing to others. It's you that's walking in the spiritual gifts. It's you that's walking in gifts of exhortation and love and encouragement and all those things. Church just isn't about me and me getting fed. It's actually about you guys needing me, without me sounding really bad right there. I need you, you need me. That's how church works. Oh, that'll tweet. Someone write that down. Or not, okay. Do it yourself. Ephesians 4 verse 11 and 12 talks about Christian development. No Christian, no person will ever reach their full potential unless church is a priority in their life. Let's talk about church though. Do you actually believe that God wants church to be something that is exclusive, only for Christians and goody two-shoe people? Some of the other reasons that people were commenting last night that they weren't regularly attending church, they don't get much out of it. It's not relevant to where they're at. It's not relevant to who I am and where I'm at. It bugs me to no end that my generation is the number one generation that spends majority of their service on their phone, on Facebook, on Instagram. Everybody just looked up at me right then. Put the phone down. Even if you're taking notes on what he's saying, put the phone down. Bugs me to no end. But you know what? We got to own some of that as preachers. If you're not delivering something that does speak to their life, that does talk to where they're at, the real issues, the real questions going on, why aren't they going to look at their phone? Because that is the real life for them. That is what's going on for them. So the church, the house, has to be relevant. It has to be addressing issues. Man, the stuff that kicked off when I decided to talk about homosexuality a few weeks ago, all of a sudden, relevance went straight to the top of the list because that's what's going on in our world right now. Number 3, record time, 2 minutes. Are you ready for this? I don't even need to preach it because Pastor Lynn preached it already. Number 3, does God still heal people today? Yes. Emphatic yes. Also, no. Yeah. Yes. Yes, because some people actually approach their God with an attitude of faith. No, because sometimes they believe, well, God, healing was for back when they were establishing the early church, not for today, so we'll just let that person die, not even going to pray for him. Yes, because sometimes he heals people even when no one's praying for him just because he's so good. Miracles happen every single day. They even get televised. No one was, as far as you know, spiritually connected to that situation and interceding and praying for that person. But because of God's hand and God's grace and God's goodness is ferocious, he was all over that scenario anyway. But if something goes wrong, aka 9/11, Twin Towers crashing, well, where was God? Notice, if that plane had missed the Twin Towers by 3 or 4 inches, I wonder how many headlines would have gone, by the grace of God, it missed and saved all those people. But as soon as it hits, where's God? Do you see what I'm saying here? Right? So yes, if you approach God in faith. Jesus healed all throughout his ministry, said stuff like, greater things you will do. Greater things you will do. John 14, verse 12 to 14, Acts 8, Acts chapter 19, Acts 28. I do not have the time to go through it line by line, precept upon precept. Take some ownership, go home and study it yourself. They were laying hands on people, even to the point where their shadows were touching people and healing people. They were anointing, that's putting oil on something for the purpose of prayer, and laying that handkerchief on somebody and seeing them get raised up. Does God still heal today? Yes, he does. Do miracles still happen today? Yes, they do, for people that push for them, for people that will actually put themselves as a point of contact between them and heaven. That is our job as the church, as the Christians. We're a pipeline from heaven to earth. The amount of times I get told, Dax, you're just like this lightning bolt of positive energy, and that's the way people that don't always get the presence of God or the power of God, that's the way that they can grasp it and describe it, right? And I'm like, really, if you only knew? I'm simply a light. I'm a neon light. It's what I'm plugged into that you're seeing the result of, but it all comes from him. It all comes from Jesus. So the healing, it ain't about a Benny Hinn ministry. It ain't about whatever that. It ain't about, picking back up, praise the Lord. It's not about all of that stuff. He's just a point of contact, just a neon sign. So does God heal today? Absolutely. I've seen it. I got saved that way. It was my busted ligament. Non-Christian, went up the front after I saw that kid that I told you about before, got his leg prayed for. He got healed down the front, starts running up and down the front of the church. I went up and I'm like, look here, man. That's what I said to the pastor. Look here, man. Not a Christian. I said, can you do that prayer thing again? Like Mr. Miyagi, heal my leg because I've got my basketball grand final in 2 weeks and I've been told I can't play. I'm out for 6 weeks with a ruptured ligament. He's like, do you believe God can do it? I'm like, he did it for that kid. What, is he discriminatory now? I have so much attitude. They lay hands on me. He goes, I'm just going to put my hands on you. He goes, there's nothing crazy. If you don't want me to, I won't. I'll just hold your hand or whatever. But the Bible talks about laying on of hands, and it's just a point of contact for the power of God to flow into someone's body and bring healing. It's not crazy. It's not super weird, even though on TV it kind of does when I see Benny Hinn and he's hitting people with jackets and they're like, it's like some kung fu video game. But anyway, whatever. I'm not going to say how God can and can't work, but they laid hands on me and I began to feel just this pain-free strength. I didn't feel weird. I didn't feel, because God's a gentleman. He doesn't force himself on anybody. You got to open the door. But I was like, God, I want to play ball. I want to play ball. I want to play basketball. I want to win this grand final. I got healed. Non-Christian, got healed in church. I start to jump. I start to bounce up on the altar. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I'm going to bring everybody. Do you want Jesus? No, just do the prayer thing, man. We can get So does God still heal today? Absolutely. Why? Because I've seen it. Not only in my own life, but the amount of people that I've prayed for and seen them get healed either in front of my eyes. I've seen fingers grow back. I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff that happens. So if God doesn't heal for you, you just hang around us for a few weeks and you begin to see stuff happen. You begin to get yourself on that prayer request list on Julie's prayer request thing and you begin to see what God does. Sometimes people don't get healed. Sometimes people die, sometimes people don't get anything, and all I can go is, well, God, I know you're good, I know your plan for us is amazing, and hey, you just had a different plan with this. Taking them home early, whatever, I don't know. I'm upset about it, I'm gonna miss them. I really would like to see them healed. All I know is that my job is to stand and pray and believe for God to do something in someone else's life, yeah? Let's all stand, come on. Our prayer through this frequently asked questions is hopefully it can just bring some consolidation to some of the questions you've either been hearing or maybe help you explain your belief, your faith to those out there that go, wow, that's really weird, or that's so different to what I've heard or whatnot. And from what we're hearing, it's been impacting people we don't even know about. It's been awesome. What I want to do this morning is I do want to pray for people that are standing in the gap for someone who's maybe sick. And this is the thing about healing. It's not just physical. It's spiritual. It's emotional. In fact, emotional scars, emotional hurts can be the worst. And I would love to pray. I'd love to stand with you and pray this morning. It's got nothing to do with me. There's nothing special about me. All that I'm doing is I'm going to stand with you and believe that God would do what only He can do, which is change your life. Touch something that no one else can touch and heal. Do something that the doctors have said we can't do anything for. Is that all right? Awesome. Awesome. So this morning, if that's you and you need prayer for something, I would love to meet you right here. I'm going to move this out the way. It's not going to be weird. It's not going to be crazy. You don't even have to close your eyes. I prayed for a girl in a food court one time. And she's like, do I have to put my hands together? And I'm like, no. She goes, do I have to close my eyes? And I said, no. We can just look like we're having a conversation and I'm going to pray for you. Is that all right? Is there anyone else? You want prayer for anything?